The Writer's Stage, Unit 1, Childhood. Lesson 3, Brainstorming. We're going to start this lesson with an overview of the writing process. Understanding the steps of the writing process and practicing them will help you accomplish any writing you're assigned. Writing begins with Step 1, Brainstorming, which is identifying significant questions and recalling or discovering the information needed to answer the questions. We'll discuss this step further in this video. Once lots of ideas and details are down on paper, Step 2, Organizing, is required. Organizing means sifting through those brainstormed ideas, discarding some of them and keeping others, then putting those ideas in some sort of order. We'll discuss this step further in Lesson 4. Good writing must also be put through several drafts, Step 3, and revising and editing, Step 4. Revisions cannot take place without getting feedback from others. After all, writing is a public act. In this course, you'll submit your drafts online and choose a peer's draft to edit. While it's important to give each other feedback, exposing yourself to others' ideas and choices will also help your own writing. This step is so crucial, in fact, that you earn more points for the peer editing process than you do for most of the journals you're asked to complete. Next, students generally finalize their essay. Step 5. However, I would submit that you're not done yet. The most overlooked step to the process is the final one, Step 6, Proofreading. I highly recommend reading the essay out loud to yourself or having someone read it out loud to you. You will quickly find the little errors which inhibit the reader from appreciating your ideas. I also recommend printing out a copy once you think you're really done. Reading it slowly in hard copy form, for some reason, makes the errors jump out at you. All steps to the writing process will help you write effectively and will help keep your writing from becoming that hopeless drudgery we discussed in the intro video. As you begin, remember, like childhood, writing is playful. So we're going to play around with a variety of invention techniques to help get you started. You'll want to have a notebook and something to write with as you listen to the rest of this video. Remember to pause the video for each technique. Even if you don't take the time to try out these techniques in the video, please take some time to try them after. Remember, not every technique will appeal to you, but I urge you to give each one a try this time to find out what's best. If your invention activities are effective, you'll accomplish several things. You will gather a great deal of information to use in developing your essay. You'll discover something significant about that information worthy of being shared with your audience. In other words, you're going to figure out your thesis. And you will consider the audience of your essay and know what the audience will want or need to know in order for you to achieve your purpose. You should keep in mind that some writing tasks will define these points for you. You may be told what sort of information to include or what audience you're writing for, but some tasks are less defined and will require that you determine the audience, the thesis, and the content. The goal is to generate enough material to determine what the thesis and content of the essay will be. You may, in fact, need to do additional brainstorming in the middle of the drafting of your essay. Of the numerous invention activities presented in writing textbooks today, I think some of the easiest to use are listing, clustering, free writing, asking questions, and interviewing. Interviewing in particular may be helpful for the comparison part of this essay. Making use of a few or all of these will almost always get you started toward a successful essay. Listing is an easy method of invention and can be an effective way of exploring possible topics. Read the assigned topic and in 4 to 5 minutes, list as many ideas as you can. Listing is great for linear thinkers or for right-brained individuals like me. I always feel much more organized when I have a list, even if it's just a grocery list. Since this is an essay comparing the childhood of 2 different generations, you might list as many aspects of your childhood that come to mind, and then go through and try to match up ideas from your parents' or grandparents' childhoods, or from the childhood of kids today. Essentially, you're generating two lists. You could list details for any of the following categories, just as suggestions: play, entertainment, discipline, family activities, technology, parental expectations, school, neighborhoods, chores, friendship, fashion, or even television shows. Remember, you're focusing on childhood, so be sure not to stray into the teenage years. I did some brainstorming by list, and here's my list. Notice that as I started to write down words, it occurred to me that most of these occurred during the summertime. So my childhood list focuses on summertime. After you find a general topic, you should take the time to list as many details or examples or anecdotes about the topic as you can recall. Again, doing so for each generation being discussed. Notice that there are possible stories behind almost every single one of the items on my list, and there are lots more details that I could include. This is a good start. Instead of relying on listing alone, you may wish to try a different brainstorming technique. Clustering is another invention strategy. Clustering is more random, but it also allows for more possibilities. One advantage to clustering as an invention activity is that it can help you see relationships or patterns in your material, which helps keep you organized as you go. You can see an example of clustering in your textbook on page 20 and 21. If you're more apt to sit at a computer than write with pen and paper, there's a clustering website that might be of interest to you. It's bubble.us. Here's a quick sample of a clustering exercise that I started on that website. To cluster, put a keyword in the center of the page. In this case, my keyword was childhood. Because of the way that I started to develop my clustering, it ended up at the top of the page, but it is the focus. Then write down free associations that are triggered by that word, and don't stop too soon. You'll notice that I started to get to some of the details down by teeter-totter, where I noted that it was dangerous. But really, I needed to do much more clustering than I have started here. The more you remember about your childhood or any topic, the more insight you're likely to gain about that topic. Remember, good writers write from wealth, and that wealth is the wealth of their memory. After looking at my clustering and the students' sample clustering, we would both benefit from exploring some of these memories further by free writing. Though the student writer uses it after clustering, free writing can be used from the beginning of the brainstorming stage. As a brainstorm activity, you need only to choose a keyword or phrase, any keyword relevant to the assignment. Then you need to write as much as possible for 3 to 5 minutes, without stopping or editing your thoughts. Write whatever comes to mind. Spontaneity is an important principle in this activity. When free writing, write as quickly as possible. An invention activity is not the essay, so spelling and grammar are not important at this time. The only thing that matters is finding information that you can later work with when you actually draft the essay. After writing for about 5 minutes, you should stop and look at the passage in your free writing and pull out something that seems to be of interest to you. After selecting a passage or phrase of interest, you should write for another 5 minutes or so. You may want to repeat this process several times. I mentioned 2 other methods of brainstorming. The student author in this unit didn't make use of them, but they're certainly worth noting. The first is asking questions. Asking questions offers an additional method for gathering information, and actually writing the answers out can be very valuable. This strategy has been applied by different rhetoricians in a variety of ways, but one of the best ways to ask questions remains the journalist's questions you probably studied a long time ago. Who, what, where, when, how, and why. You might ask dozens of questions. Who influences children today? What are the outstanding characteristics of children today? How do children act today? When did children change, if they did? Why should anyone care? You could pose these questions and numerous others. Writing brief answers to each of the questions will force you to test your thoughts. With these questions in mind, you might also consider interviewing others to get ideas and information for an essay. Interviewing may be especially useful if you lack personal knowledge of the subject. You may need to interview others who have some knowledge of the past, for example, grandparents or parents. If you wish to interview them, make sure that you write out your questions in advance. Be sure to take notes during the interview. As a rule, it's wise to review your notes immediately following an interview to make sure you got everything down that you wanted. Note any insights that you find. Introducing grandparents or children or other experts as sources into a composition can give credibility to your own opinions. Interviewing others is especially useful because it forces you to encounter others' views and opinions, and it usually leads to fresh and thoughtful writing. As you practice the invention stage of writing, it's important to remember that the more possibilities you see for your essay, the better chance you'll have to avoid trite compositions. As a caution, if you start writing phrases like kids these days or all kids today, you know you need to go back and do some brainstorming or interviewing to gather more specific details. Good writers make choices. Get down as many ideas as possible, and then you can sift through them and discard what's not worth keeping and further develop the ideas that are. Then go back and add details. Think about the 5 senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, even taste. Including those details will make for a rich essay. Invention should be like play, something you hate to interrupt, and something likely to be full of surprises. If you approach your writing with a genuine playfulness, your essays will be more effective and you'll certainly have more fun writing them. Don't forget you're comparing and contrasting. Aim for equal levels of detail in both your childhood and the childhood of others. Now it's your turn. Start brainstorming.